Okay, every like, I don't know, 6 months-ish to a year, I get this bug to like clean out my house and go through boxes. And it seems like I'll like get through a certain amount and then I'm like, okay, good enough. This is good. And then I just stop for a while and then I pick back up where I left off. I'm like, but there's still these things I haven't got to. Anyways, yesterday was one of those days and I was going through, I used to be an avid journal writer before my eating disorder, like every single day, probably from the time I was like 8 until I don't know, 16, 17. I wrote my journal every single day. So I came across a box of journals, not those ones. I've seen those ones already, gone through those. But I came across a box of journals that I wrote in, in the years that I struggled. And I came across the journal that I was writing in when I entered full recovery, kind of going from like that state of quasi recovery where I just decided I had to be done. And I kind of wish that I could find this journal when I was in recovery, but I didn't. Like I said, I have so many journals. And so I just came across it and I was reading through it. I'm like, I'm going to read this. I know Emily Spence has done this and I think it's a really effective tool because I think anyone that listens to these entries is going to be able to really relate very much to what she's writing in her journal. Is very similar probably to what I'm writing in mine. So this was one of the journal entries that I wrote just before starting like my last attempt at recovery. I decided I needed to start journaling again. This journal will be about me getting out of quasi-recovery. Last night was rough. I cried a lot, more than I've ever in a very long time. Zach held me in his arms, Zach's my husband, held me in his arms as I sobbed and wept and sobbed some more. A lot of really heavy and difficult emotions came to the surface. Some pretty dominant ones were deep sorrow, anger, regret, resentfulness towards eating disorder, hopelessness, and helplessness. I'm so sick of struggling with an eating disorder. I need to be done with it, like now. It's taken too much from me. I wanted to have more kids, but the eating disorder didn't allow for that. I want to feel connected to Zach, but the eating disorder makes that hard. When I was rock bottom, I felt like I had a huge brick wall up and wouldn't let anyone in. Now I feel like I have a glass wall where I can see others and want to let them in, but still can't. And I don't remember writing this, but clearly I did. But I do remember like when I was at rock bottom, I didn't even like realize what I was missing. I didn't acknowledge the fact that I had put this huge wall up and that I wasn't connected to my husband. And, I was in such denial that I was sick and on such like a high of restriction and so checked out that I didn't even realize what I was missing. But in quasi recovery, and this is why sometimes I think it's even worse than when you're rock bottom, in quasi recovery, I was aware of what I was missing. I was aware that I like wanted that connection and I would have emotions, but I couldn't fully tap into them and I couldn't fully connect to people. And so that's kind of where I said like, it was like I had this glass wall and I could like see people on the other side, but I couldn't fully connect still. Okay, I'll keep going. The eating disorder keeps me in some sort of alternate reality where a lot of cognitive dissonance exists. One moment I feel on top of the world and truly believe I am fine living in this way forever. And the next moment I feel distraught and discouraged. Essentially just really fed up with all the hoops I have to jump through just to keep all my ducks in a row. To say it's exhausting would be a huge understatement. It is all-consuming, distracting, and tedious. It's also what I know, safe, predictable, constant, and sickeningly addicting. Having a long-term eating disorder starts to make you feel like you're going crazy. Happy one moment, depressed the next. In control one moment, completely crashing and burning the next. Feeling safe one moment and sheer terror the next. I often daydream what my life would look like and feel like if I wasn't a slave to my worst enemy, the eating disorder. Is it actually possible to really just eat what you want, whenever you want, with reckless abandon? Do people do that? Is that a thing? Well, in my dreams it is, so why not shoot for the stars? I don't have a lot to lose. Curiosity is getting the better of me. I feel like I have to jump now before my brain intercepts my bravery and I chicken out. In the past, I've spent countless hours, days, months formulating the perfect recovery plan. I'm doing it now. I'm doing it. I know and I've known all along that the perfect plan is the one I execute now. No more thinking, reacting to intrusive thoughts, or listening to the fear-based lies I've always fallen for. I'm smarter this time around. I just have to stay one step ahead of my eating disorder and I'll be golden. A constant stream of food and rest should do the trick. I need confidence. I don't have much. Where has it all gone? I used to be such a confident kid. Where did she go? I have to do the hard things, the things I most dread if I expect to build back my confidence. I have had it backwards all along. I keep waiting for confidence to fall into my lap and then I'll start being brave. I have to be brave and then confidence will come. I guess I need to have more faith in myself and in God. It's becoming more and more clear what has to happen. I'm terrified but excited and insecure but hopeful. Let this journey begin. So one thing I wanted to comment on in a couple paragraphs back was when I said, where is it? Something about I had to stay one step ahead. And I want to kind of touch on that. And I want to encourage you, after listening to this, to practice this skill or tool that I'm going to give you. So I want you to imagine just a dreamy day without your eating disorder, what that would look like. What do you imagine and envision you being able to do if you didn't have your eating disorder? When you're still contemplating recovery, at least I know for me, I would just think about these days of like sleeping in and waking up and just having like this huge breakfast of like, probably my hunger was so high at that point, probably like 10 or 12 different things, and just eating and eating and eating, and then like resting, and then like reading a book and watching a show, and then just like going out to lunch, and like I just remember like these days that I just like fantasize about, but never feel like I could actually do. So when I started recovery, what I did was I thought about all those things and I wrote them out specifically, like sleep in, do this. And I actually found that journal too, where I was like writing once I went into recovery, like 8 to 9 this, 9 to 9:30 this, 9:30 to 10 this, and I'd write it all down. And then I would go and look at it, like, so I almost did like 3 columns. So I'd write down kind of my dream day, what that would look like. And then the next one, next to each thing that I wanted to be able to do, I'd write like what my eating disorder was going to have to say about that, essentially. How is my eating disorder going to react to that? So sleep in. I know I'm going to feel a ton of guilt and feel like I'm behind in my day and feel like I wasted the morning. I'm going to feel lazy and gluttonous and not like I don't deserve to eat. So I'd write all that out. And then in the third column, I'd write what I was actually going to do, right? What was I going to actually do? So I'm going to actually sleep in, and I'm going to get a huge breakfast, and I'm just going to allow myself to enjoy it. And so it's almost like you go from being the observer, you go from being the victim of like this just happening to you when you're trying to challenge things, to becoming an observer and taking control of the situation. So when I would actually then go through with going out to lunch, like I had, said I wanted to do, and like I was committed to doing, I would go out to lunch and I'd be like, okay, driving to lunch, you already know what's going to happen. You're going to order the scariest thing on the menu. And then, afterwards you're going to freak out, especially if it's not perfect, Becky. You can already plan on that. If it's not perfect, you're going to absolutely wig out. You're going to want to let it ruin your entire day, and you're going to want to restrict. And you're probably going to want to go for a walk or something after, just to ease your anxiety. You already know all those things are going to happen. Eating disorders are so predictable that way. But what are you going to do instead? Instead, you're going to eat the entire meal, whatever it is that you order, whether you like it or you don't. And then you're going to you already know what's going to happen. You're going to get in the car and you're going to feel guilty, but you also know you're going to want to eat more food. And you're going to feel distraught and you're going to feel traumatized that you just ate all that food, but you still want so much more food. So what are you going to do? You already know what you're going to do because you're in recovery. You're going to go get more food, or you're going to go straight home and eat more right when you get home. And then you're going to eat more and you're going to be like, this is out of control. My brain is going crazy. I'm addicted to food. It's never going to stop. This hunger is insane, but you're still going to want to eat. So what are you going to do? You're going to let yourself eat more. Becky, you're going to eat so much until you physically can't put another bite in. Then you're going to lay down. And then as soon as you can eat again, you're going to want to get up and eat again. And so I kind of had to like talk myself through, instead of being reactive, I had to be like, I'm taking control. I'm just going to observe what's happening. But then I already have a game plan as to how I'm going to tackle that. So hopefully something in this message today, whether it be the journal entry that I read to you, or this tool that you can go and practice, writing out your fantasizing or your imaginary day of what recovery would look like if you were truly fully committed, how your eating disorder would respond to that, and then what you're actually going to do now that you're fully in recovery. So hope you have a good day. Bye.